and enthusiasm actually reduce the ability of extroverts to make sales in two very important and key ways. Number one, they focus more on their own perspective than on the client's perspective. They're more likely to try to dominate conversations, often expressing, I'd say, a bit too much enthusiasm for their own ideas, and they inadvertently neglect other people's perspectives, right? And as a result, extroverts tend to spend way too much time delivering assertive, enthusiastic, over-the-top pitches, right? Instead of listening to customers and actually answering questions. And number two, this is an important one, they may elicit negative responses from prospects, yeah? Because they're overly enthusiastic, they're trying to assert the value of their services a bit too much, they get too excited. Prospect may interpret this as a signal that salespeople are trying to influence them. And people generally tend to try to influence you. You know, when they say, have you ever heard of the phrase, is it he or she doth protest too much? You ever heard that before? Give me a one real quick, guys. It's really important. You ever heard that before? Right. Why is that a famous phrase? Why has that stood the test of time? Well, it tells you if someone's trying to do something a bit too much, there's something a bit weird about that. And if they've got a good product, a good service, why are they trying to sell us to, you know, so in such a sort of hard and aggressive way, right? And once customers recognize persuasive intent on the part of a salesperson, they're likely to still strive to maintain control, protect themselves, and by scrutinizing the message more carefully and marshalling counter arguments, resisting or rejecting. And then they get that feeling. Have you ever had that feeling where you're like, you know what? There's something about the person, if you've ever sat across the room from them, you just like this, I don't know what it is, but there's something. And you probably would have bought from them if they hadn't have tried to push you so hard, right? And that's exactly why I had to model some of Chris's quiet, calm, reserved tendencies and become more of an introvert, believe it or not. And it's one of the funniest stories in terms of the history of Amplify and how we built the company. So check this out. You see, according to experts, 68%, this is really important, 68% of the world's population are not introverts or extroverts. They're actually somewhere in the middle, but actually more towards being an introvert than an extrovert. But you can see on the screen, because obviously both are very, very extreme, right? And as it turns out, this is exactly where you want to be and where the humble king sits. Because the humble king has a mixture of both introvert and extrovert traits, but leans slightly more towards the introverted end of the spectrum. And this is the role you want to play when talking with potential clients. And as a natural extrovert, I've had to become more of an introvert in order to play the role of the humble king, right? I've had to go even further than Chris had to come, if you like, right? Because he, on the other hand, he naturally was more of an introvert, and he's had to adopt a little bit more of the extroverted tendencies. However, learning this and knowing this, you know, the learning curve itself was significantly shorter for him, as I mentioned, right? As it may be for you potentially, because he already skewed heavily towards the introverted side of the spectrum. So anyway, what I'm trying to say in short is, regardless of where you feel you are on this scale that you can see on the screen, and especially if you feel a little bit more introverted, this is something literally anyone can do, and you're actually better placed than you realize. And you can see on the screen here, this isn't just a theory, right? There's actual science behind this stuff. If you just bear with me a second. Because tell I'm an extrovert, right? I need to take a swig of water every 5 minutes. But anyway, to test the relationship between extroversion and sales performance, look at the screen here. This is crazy stuff. Researchers actually conducted a study of around 340 outbound call center representatives, right? Measuring their extroversion and then tracking their sales and their revenue over a 3-month period. Now, according to conventional wisdom, maximum revenue should be reached by employees with a score of around 5.5 or higher on the 7-point of the extroversion scale, right? So the more extroverted you are, conventional wisdom dictates that, hey, you should make more sales. Well, guess what? That's not what happened. Instead, the employees with the highest revenue per hour, as you can see here, and it was at around $208 per hour, were those who had an extroversion score at exact midpoint of 4. And then it started to drop off, right? And extroversion actually led to a decrease in sales, as in more extroversion from there. So anyway, what's the lesson here in order to simplify this? Well, the lesson is, if you want to be a humble king on the phone, averaging over $500 per call or more, then you don't need to be an extrovert. You simply need to follow a repeatable process that is proven, because you cannot mess with proven results, yeah? Irrefutable. And that's what yields results. So if you can read and speak, can you read and speak? Give me one if you can read.